Hi everyone, my name is Jaime Esposito. Welcome to the Diversity Alliance panel. We are here to talk about quite a few things. Main thing being that percussion is for everybody. And everyone on this panel right now has done a lot of work to make sure percussion is getting to everybody. A little bit about myself. So my name is Jaime Esposito. I'm the co-founder of Spectrum Ensemble, and it is a new music ensemble promoting LGBTQ diversity and inclusion with composers and performers.
Hi, I'm Josh Jones. I am the current principal percussionist of the Kansas City Symphony.
Good afternoon or good evening, whenever you're viewing this.
Right.
Currently assistant professor of percussion at Albany State University.
Hi, I'm Raychel Taylor. I am the founder of Girls March, which is an organization for women percussionists at this point, by women percussionists.
Hey everyone, I'm Ralph Hicks, and I spent 25 years in education, and about 9 years ago, I founded a nonprofit called Let Them Drum, where we focus on recreational and therapeutic group drumming for those with and without disabilities throughout our community.
So, one thing we're going to do as a panel is kind of discuss what diversity, because so many people have said, well, we want our ensemble to be more diverse. We want this drum line to be more diverse. But what is like a definition of diverse? And is there even one?
I'll definitely go ahead and say something. That's a really big, circle of things. I mean, diversity, we could definitely say we want to see more diversity as far as gender is concerned. There in percussion or music world, percussion can be thought of as very male dominated. So we would definitely want to see, more women. But then we could also talk about race, more ethnic backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. But then, we have the socioeconomic, we have religious things, nationality. I mean, there are so many different ways we could break down people being different. I guess for me, diversity for me is just representing all the differences that we can see in people. I just don't want to see all of the same thing. I want to just see a representation of, this huge melting pot of so many different types of people.
Absolutely. And I think this is a really difficult question. And I definitely do think that there's not a right or wrong answer. But the answer would just be that percussion is for everyone. So when we get to a place where people are not excluded because of who they are or what they look like, that would be a perfect world.
My group, we focus on with or without disabilities, and with disabilities, it's not always obvious. It's not a skin color. It's not a gender. It can be hidden. You can look at someone and not know what their disability is.
I feel like the day where I don't notice is when there'll be enough diversity. I don't want to be like, hey, there's the one Black drummer, or like, hey, there's the one female bassist. Like when it doesn't seem strange that someone is doing what they're doing and it just is normal, that'll be a good day for me.
So with that being said, can we go into a little bit more detail on how did you get into your work and why did you start?
Okay, so the only, well, not maybe the only reason, but the biggest reason I became an orchestral percussionist is because I had an opportunity with the percussion scholarship program as a young child, 4th grade. Without that program, I would not be in this position right now. Essentially, they gave inner city kids in Chicago, not just Black kids, all races of kids, lessons for free every Saturday for 45 minutes. And they gave you a drum pad to practice on, drumsticks, music, a little stand you could take home. And then when you graduated to a snare drum, they gave you a snare drum to practice with. And then when you graduated up to a marimba, they gave you a marimba to practice with. No rental fee. You just had to come pick it up, break it down, and take it home. Don't break it, take care of it.
Josh, can you say who runs that?
Okay, Douglas Waddell from the Lyric Opera of Chicago and Patricia Dash from the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. They're like my second mom and dad at this point, because that's how deeply they care about the kids. Like, they're really invested. They were really interested in giving kids the opportunity, the information, the access for free. And if they wanted to do music, that's great. If they didn't want to do music, that's fine too. They still have to play at a high level though. The standards are pretty high. I think one of the other things that they were really interested in was not just playing at a high level, but being good human beings. Because there's a lot of, as kids, you know, you're kind of like in your own world. But if someone else needs help putting their, you know, setup away and you're done, Doug will be like, okay, you're done. Go help so-and-so with their setup. There's still stuff around. You got to help out, you know, that kind of thing. And especially early on, they encouraged people practicing together, or if someone had questions, you know, help each other out. So it really brings a sense of community and a sense of like, not just ownership, but responsibility with what everybody else is doing. So definitely programs like that really are, I guess, mandatory at this point, because with schools not having arts or music in general or things like that, it's really hard for people to get that type of access to just seeing someone play an instrument at all. Where you see like sports are all over the place and things like that, but having something where you can really see someone playing music that either looks like you or looks different from the standard orchestra setup is really important.
Well, with Let Them Drum, it really helped me recognize the power in my privilege, because I am just Mexican enough to still pass for white. And I had to face the fact that I've never had a door closed to me. I've never had a phone call go unreturned. I've never had that. And so I discovered that's a power I can use. I can use that to help create the spaces, because with children with disabilities, when you really look at it, baseball's not in their future. Homecoming is not in their future. What a lot of parents with children with disabilities, they've figured out, well, if I want my child to have a prom, we're going to have to create one for them. And so we discovered, because I guess Let Them Drum, we are founded as allies. We're all allies, whereas we're realizing this is an experience that I had through my life and I took for granted. And there's this entire community that will never have that opportunity. So let's take our privilege and create the opportunity. And that's where Let Them Drum came from, is that we bought all the buckets and all that stuff. And if you can't even form a grip, well, bud, bring yourself anyway. We'll figure out a way to get that stick to stay in your hand. If it's a piece of tape, if it's a rubber band, if it's your mom holding your hand and moving it for you, it's so wonderful to see the spaces that we were able to create for our community.
For me, all my life, I've always kind of had people who inspired me, or like, hey, you should try this, or hey, have you seen this? Go over there. You know, my first instrument was because my mom's best friend said, hey, her hands look like piano hands. Can I teach her? And just volunteered to teach me piano. Okay. I fell in love with it. I mean, I just love playing music. The idea of just creating something from your own self, you know, it's just awesome. So I just fell in love with music from the beginning. And, by the time I got to middle school, I had a band director who saw in me that I would be a great percussionist. At first I really wanted to be a clarinet player. That's what I wanted to do. And she was like, no, you can't play clarinet. Your skills need to be in percussion. I was so upset at her. But I got over it. I remember when I got my first, little snare drum kit and my little bell kit. I think even early on, I didn't even really understand what percussion was. It was just like, what is this stuff I'm going to be playing? And for me, it was just a challenge. I was like, oh, let me try this out. And my band director had a best friend who was a percussion teacher, happened to be one of the main percussion teachers in the state of South Carolina, did all the All-State, all the clinics. She became my private teacher. And my band director literally put me in her car and drove me over to her house so I could have lessons with her. So, it's been inspirational because there's always been someone who has really just, gone that extra step. I see you could have potential, so let me help you, which I think for me, I've always liked helping people. That can change somebody's life just by helping them. And I always had this real drive. If you're going to spend your time doing something, I think you should just be the best at it, because time is one of the most valuable commodities you have. You can't get it back once it's gone. So why waste your time being mediocre? Doesn't matter what it is, be the best at it. So for me, I early on, even before I got an undergraduate degree, said, I'm going to go get, what's the highest thing I can do? Okay, I'm going to get a doctorate, because I just want to be really good at what I do. And I wanted to just have those skills and keep studying from people. Because I found the more people I studied from, you just get so many different perspectives, good, bad, ugly, everything. You just learn so much. I went to, I think most people know, I went to MTSU, Middle Tennessee State University. My private teacher said, this is where you need to go. And it was really interesting because if you know, the professor there is Lalo Davila when I went there. And it was really neat to have that first experience, teach from somebody I never had a person that was Mexican teach me. So it was pretty neat. And he spent a lot of time talking to me about, you are a Black woman in America. This is what's going to happen. You need to be good. You're not going to be a horrible snare drum player. We're going to play these 10 snare drum. I mean, he pushed me so hard because he knew what I was going to face out in the real world. I didn't even know, but he knew, because he was a minority as well. So he's like, I'm going to make sure you are ready. And just putting me out in every type of, clinic, this, that, and other. I was blessed to study with Christopher Norton, which is a totally different perspective, and I got a totally different idea of what music was. From him, I got the idea of, everyone should take control of their own education. You're going to get out of life what you put into it. And it just really changed my life. And, I saw him as a model, and I really wanted to be a person like him. He was, such a nice person, caring person, never raised his voice. I'm like, wow, this is really beautiful, but so successful, non-boastful. So I used him as a model, and he really, really encouraged me in everything. You need to be the authority. And I remember he would say, Jillian Baxter has said it, so it is so. And, and just him talking to me like that just made me feel, so positive. And that set up for me, I wanted to be in a position where I could empower other people, the same experiences I got, I wanted to give other people that experience. So, finally going to the doctorate, getting to study University of Georgia with Timothy K. Adams, that was another incredibly great experience. And once again, I get to study with a Black man. First time I'd had a music teacher that looked like me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so incredible, So, I've had so many different perspectives, so many different types of music that I've studied. So finally, just to teach at the university level, I just found that it was great I wanted to teach students that, believe that maybe they wanted to do music, but then also trying to help them have the skills to be successful. So, I'm at Albany State University, and we're blessed to do things like, summer music camps, which a lot of people do them, but our summer music camp is completely free and is to the community. So, we have, 50 slots. We go out and anybody in the community who wants to come, if you're a high school student, you can come, but, class piano, we have ensembles, we give private lessons, and, just being able to touch other people and inspire them is so important. That's primarily why I want to be a university percussion instructor, teach at the, that level. I think you can be more visible and touch even more people. Not that you couldn't at middle school, high school, but there's something about being at that university. You can touch and reach out in spheres that sometimes you can't in others. So I just enjoy, like I said, being able, just one word can change somebody's life. That's, what I want to do and try to keep doing.
Cool to hear that you're touching so many people and changing so many people's lives in the position you have. That's awesome.
So Girls March started because I started asking people what they thought about an opportunity to go study percussion from women who are percussionists. And the response was overwhelmingly, wait a second, why isn't that already a thing? And that was coming from people that I really admire and look up to, people like Sandy Rennick and Lauren Teal. And I had reflected on my own experiences and realized that, much like Dr. Baxter, I was not learning percussion from a woman until I was like 19 or 20. So I had done music for a really long time before I had any kind of role model that I felt like I could relate to in a different kind of way. I wanted to create a space where we were creating a very positive environment that was uplifting young women and also giving them direct access to female role models. Because as has already been said many times, if you do not see people who look like you succeeding in your field, you are less likely to continue in that field. And the sooner we can introduce kids to people who look different than them, teaching their music, the sooner they're going to just be like, oh, this is normal. Because this is, whether it's young girls or young boys, like everybody needs to see different kinds of people. Otherwise, they're growing up and they're kind of instilled subconsciously with this kind of like, oh, this kind of person doesn't know how to do this or can't do this or isn't very good at this, because they're not seeing it, right? So if we can introduce those things to young kids earlier, the better all around. You know, it's not rare for women to be playing percussion at this point, right?
Yeah.
But there are definitely some girls, depending on where they're living, that might be the only girl on their drumline still. But to have a place for them to go and understand that, like, you're not alone. You might feel alone at school, but you can come here, meet some different people from around the world, and now you have a community and a network of connections for support that you can lean on when you go back to that school. And maybe you do feel all by yourself. It's really been amazing to see the girls connect. You know, that first year in 2018, I'll never forget. They all showed up. We went into the auditorium to do the, like, hey, this is the camp, these are the expectations, introductions. And they sat far away from each other. They were so scared of each other. And it's funny because I remember feeling that way about other women in percussion too, especially during undergraduate degree. I really felt like there was a little bit of pressure as one of the women in the studio to just be like, I kind of have to be the best one. Yeah, Jamie, go ahead.
Okay, I want to bring that up because I think that's such an important thing that people don't talk about, and I don't know why it happens, but for some reason in studios with more than one female, it becomes a thing of not even being the best percussionist. We'll use percussionist because we are a percussionist. It's like I have to be the best girl one if I can't be the best one, and it's some weird complex because that is a social pressure that was put on us that we didn't realize was happening. It doesn't matter how good you are in a lot of situations to get obviously a certain level, yes, of a standard. You have to be a good player, but most people who finish degrees are that standard. It's about how you communicate with people, how you can build a community within people that are going to make you more successful. So it's a weird thing we're encouraging, a very toxic thing we're encouraging. But I do understand the separate pressure of needing, if you're going to take auditions, you need pressure to be competitive. But there's so many little degrees that it goes in that aren't necessarily talked about.
So I think it's not anyone's fault. Don't blame myself for when I saw one of my colleagues get up on stage as like a freshman in college, I was kind of just like, well, I kind of wanted them to fail. And then I realized like how horrible of a thought that is. And that is just culturally what we have been taught. Like we're pitted against each other as women, I guess.
And this is not every school. There are some professors who do a beautiful job with this. Like, let's make that clear. But these are very specific to at least two people right here. I mean, one thing that Rachel's been saying that I want the listeners to understand is that there's a reoccurring theme happening where if you see someone who looks like you doing something you want to do, you're going to be more successful.
Yeah, like not everybody wants to be a pioneer, right? And most people are not going to be pioneers because like lots of people are still doing this work. But the point is like, if you don't see them, if there's no visibility, you're going to feel like you have to be a pioneer, and not everybody wants that pressure. So I just realized that like, if I'm watching someone and kind of hope that they fail so that I end up a rung above them, whatever that means, I realized that like, if we are not rooting for each other as women, who's rooting for us? Because it's not the guys in the studio most of the time. Now, I think things have changed a lot. I will say that since we were there or anything like that. But I definitely felt like there was just this loneliness. So I remember we started doing percussion girl get-togethers where we would just get all the women in the studio together, because I was like, we don't actually know each other. We are intimidated by each other in some ways. Let's just hang out and start getting to know each other, be more approachable. And I really do think that that helped me start to change my perspective and to change the way I was thinking. And now I really do feel that those connections are the connections that are getting me through now.
That's awesome.
So we started Girls March because the access to female mentorship, the lack of connection and lack of access to networks. And also when I was doing drum corps, it was just like, I want to be like this guy on this snare line. And they always knew this person's name. And then they'd be like, oh yeah, and then there's that girl on the Blue Devils snare line. And it's like, hold up, why don't we know her name? Her name's Nicole Casino. Why don't we know her name? She's a snare drummer at Blue Devils. So it really bothered me that people knew and like wanted to be these men and never knew the women or wanted to be them. So I think eventually if we can reach the point where we don't need Girls March anymore, if we can be obsolete because everybody is just trying to have idols that look different than them and it doesn't matter who they are. I mean, that's kind of the goal here, to become obsolete.
And I just want to say, Rach, just because both of us have been using female and girls a lot,
yes,
that Girls March is all-inclusive to female identifying and gender nonconforming, and our apologies for not mentioning that sooner. But it's
yes,
not just if you are a biological woman, you can go type thing. So it is all-inclusive. The title is just Girls March.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. And it's super important because and we've talked about this a lot. I think our experiences are not the same, but they are similar, right? So if you are feeling unwelcome in your space, I want you to feel welcome in my space. I want Girls March to be a place where people can go and still feel, but I totally do recognize that like, that's not going to be a comfortable place for people who are maybe more masculine, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That might not be a place that they want to come, which I totally understand.
Sure.
But, yeah.
Something that I've always been preparing for, thanks to Doug and Patsy, because they knew how brutal this business can be, and they knew how, I guess, politics and jealousy and all that kind of stuff can play a part in your career. It was when I was like 15, so they were just saying, when it starts, you can always call us. Just, you'll know when, call us. And sure enough, college comes around, starts happening. I want to share one story, and I have to like preface it with, this is going to be very careful because I've never told this story
Yeah,
before.
sure, please.
So essentially, I was playing principal for one of the concerts, and I passed all the music out, and then someone said they didn't have music. And this someone had played, had been, I guess, acting principal for the thing I was doing for a little bit. So it was like one of those things where you got to like switch off, or you rotate it. This time it was my turn to do it. They said they didn't have music, and I was like, wait, I put all the music in the things, like the folder thing and the slide in the library, and it's in there because I just did that. Everybody else got their music, and this person said they didn't. So I go back to the library. I'm like, oh, where's the music? God, like, well, we gave you the music, whatever. It's okay. So it's not over there. Did anybody else pick up the music? No. Come to find out, the person told someone else that they had the music, but the way I wrote it was confusing. But they knew that the music was for the concert that I was preparing. And they did this to basically try to get my grade lowered.
Make you look bad. You lost his music.
Yeah. And essentially from then, there were always incidents like that where if I was in charge of something, there would be like a higher standard put on me. Like if it wasn't absolutely perfect, it was complete crap.
Yeah.
And that kind of standard has always followed me. And my teacher, Doug and Patsy, had always tried to prepare me in a way that whatever I did, no one would be able to say anything. It would be absolutely in time, absolutely sound great, note perfect, blah.
Yeah.
And even still,
yeah.
that kind of standard put on anyone who comes into like the sacred space of whiteness or that kind of thing. It's like always following us around. So that's something I've continually had to deal with, and find ways to work the system that I'm in to kind of alleviate that pressure or expose people who try to take advantage of the systems that are in place. It's a very convoluted way of saying that, but I had to be very careful.
No, but and I think we know, like, bullies are bullies, you know what I mean? They're doing it because of reasons that are only on them. When people put that pressure on you, it's so hard not to internalize it. So good on you for being prepared to not internalize it so early, and a lot of other people should know that so they can also realize that they shouldn't internalize it.
Unfortunately, because I've been basically training for this, it's unfortunately already internalized. Like if I'm not practicing, I feel like, okay, well, somebody else is practicing. Like, because again, going back to Dr. Baxter and Raychel, like I have never had an African-American teacher for percussion. I have yet to have that, which is weird. And I feel like this responsibility to be that visual for people, the type of pressure that's on me to maintain a standard that people will never be able to question that I belong in this space. There's been a lot of talks about the art loses its grandeur or its status if an African American or someone who's not white is entering that space because they're not good enough, and they will bring down the level in some way. Like I'm trying to bring up the level in every single way possible. And also trying to make it evident that it's not this special thing. Like it's just drums. It's just two sticks, you move your hands and boom. It's just two sticks, you move your arms and boom. It's just two pedals, you move your feet if you got them. Like the impact you can have with just doing one thing for one person, it could be anything. Like I think it's really important.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Thank you.
Good stuff, man.
Well, I've talked a lot about, having a lot of encouragement along the way. So I guess I'll share the opposite. Same way with Josh. I grew up going to schools that were predominantly white. From a very young age, I grew up being, I guess the older I got, the less I saw of people that looked like me. There were not as many African Americans in classes with me. And then I was taking college prep classes and AP classes, and the numbers just got less and less and less. And even more than that, the females fell away too. So by the time I got to senior year in high school, I'm not only the only African American in particular classes, I'm also the only female. And there's just a feeling, unless you've probably experienced something like that, it's just a unsettling, or you just always feel like the eye is on you, and there were times that you would kind of feel like, I have to succeed, or, I've really kind of almost let everybody that will come after me down, which, is almost an unreal expectation, but you feel it so strongly, like, just like Josh is saying, I've been in a lot of different places where I am the only African American. And then on top of that, I'm female. I feel like I have to represent, my whole culture.
Right.
And if I fall down in some way, then it gives everybody an opportunity to say, well, see, that's why
right.
I shouldn't be here, and it's a unreal pressure. And the more I've talked to other people, I found that so many people have felt that, like all over the United States. We're kind of very isolated sometimes and don't realize so many other people are feeling the same things. But even through school, I felt that in little micro ways, through all different, school aspects. But I don't think I really saw it so blatantly until I finished school and really went out into the workforce. I would experience, one of my first college teaching jobs, it was very gender biased.
Yeah.
Where it was like the old boys club. I mean, they would just be all these guys together, they're doing their thing. Men have different conversations than women do. Because I mean, that's just nature of being male, being female.
Yeah.
And I would enter the room and all of a sudden would be like, good afternoon, Jillian. How are you doing today? And that would be literally how I would be talked to. And what do you, and they would go out of their way to be so extra polite to me and really make me feel uncomfortable. Like, and then when I would leave, they would go back to, oh yeah, let's have fun and da, da, da. And I'm like, wow, this is horrible to feel not included or not that you belong just because of who you are. And I had to deal with that emotionally and mentally, trying to still be successful, still teach. I had students, all my students were male. It probably wasn't until the last several years I've had a lot of female students, but my students early on, I have a lot of male students. And I would have some students who literally would say, oh, you're a girl, I don't want to listen to you. You don't know what you're talking about. I literally had students say that to me, literally just disregard I said just because I was female. So, there have been some very blatant, slaps in the face, I've experienced along the way. I focus a lot on positive things, but, I guess it's important to know that we're all going to run into negatives.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, stop, when they get hit in the face. I luckily developed, I don't know, I guess people say a strong skin or just a desire to just keep pushing forward, no matter what. And luckily I had people along the way that even when I would experience something like that, there was always someone who would show up and would say something, one word, that one sentence that would give me the energy to, okay, even though I'm getting this here, let me keep pushing forward. It's not going to be always that way, and that still, like I said, is been the impetus for me because I've seen it both sides. I've had so many ugly things said to me and so many positive things. And I know you can change somebody's life. They can give up, throw away things. People can commit suicide. I mean, so many horrible things can happen just by the words that come out of your mouth. And I've heard, like I said, the negative and positive. So I just really want to try to be positive in everything that I do. And I think I wake up every day and just make a decision to try to be positive, and it's a daily thing because, I think people think I'm a very nice person, but it's a choice. I really choose.
It is a choice.
Day to try to be nice. It doesn't have to be that way because we all have issues, concerns, and things that we're working on. So those are the things, I've had to, overcome just because I exist. Somebody just doesn't want to have anything to do with me. I didn't do anything to make them mad. I didn't, say anything bad to them. I didn't even do anything wrong, but just my existence upsets them and they want to attack me.
Yeah.
So that's been probably my biggest hurdle to get over.
I think generally I just feel like, no, I don't feel, I know that I am being treated differently in certain situations, mostly in teaching situations. If I don't have a rapport with some of the people who I'm teaching with, maybe like if I'm new, or if maybe there's like a guest speaker coming out to work with a band or something, I generally feel like I am not taken seriously. I remember wearing a dress for my senior recital, and after I played, I got some comments about the dress I chose to wear, and I was like, really, that's the first thing you noticed? Not that like I played Raymond or like killed this snare solo, like there was no comments about musically what I accomplished. It was more just like, oh, you chose to wear a dress, that's weird, or like they really liked the dress. So I thought it was interesting that people chose to focus on that. I just want to say that my experience is not universal, and just because I did not experience a lot of sexual harassment or that sort of thing does not mean that it's not happening and still happening, and it's definitely a problem. And I know that it's true because of the work that I do with Girls March and also just the people that I know professionally in the percussion world. So we're still working towards that, of course.
And I think that's like a big thing that goes unsaid about like Girls March is just like it's advocacy for women.
Right.
In the most basic form of advocacy. Man, like when I think back to my undergrad, I took for granted how much of a female powerhouse influence I had at my disposal. I went to Northwestern and I got to study with Shi Wu and Mallory Thompson, and they were on top of their crap. No one was better at saving time than Mallory Thompson. She never wasted my time in a rehearsal, and I have not met a conductor since who does that. She demanded respect because she was so good at what she did. It was no discussion of her being a female. And that's like unfair too. Shi Wu she'll speak for herself, you know what I mean? But I didn't realize until I came down to the South how quick people could be to shut your door. In my master's, I was like, hey, I made this competition. Can I go? We have a concert that day. No. I advanced, like, oh. So I like started making people mad because I stopped doing what they, like, no, I'm going to this competition. See you later. Bye. I had another professor who, it was for like conducting, and I failed piano proficiency. Like, hey man, just want to let you know I didn't pass the prerequisite. Is that going to be an issue for me to sign up? And he turned to me and said, how have you made it this far? Like, what? So I didn't realize just like how supportive the community I was actually at, even though it was like high demanding and maybe not great for many people's emotional health, they were still like gonna take care of you at your core, even if it wasn't like the most responsible way they were taking care of you. And then once I like came to a different school, I was like, oh, you want me to do this for your career? But I want to do this for my career, and you're gonna punish me for doing this. So who are you?
In terms of the positive influences in my life, my high school band director and my high school percussion instructors were all very supportive. They never questioned anything that I ever brought to them and said, I want to do this. They were just like, yeah, you can do that. If anyone can do it, you can. And I just felt that support from a young age. And my parents as well. They are super supportive. It doesn't matter if they don't really know what I'm doing. They're going to be there. They're going to watch the concert. They're going to help me get to where I want to go. So without those people, I don't know that I would have gone the path that I did. And then in college, I definitely wanted to quit multiple times, but Christopher Dean was there to listen to me and encourage me, tell me that I can do it, and believe in myself when I didn't believe in me. Sorry, he believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And that's really kind of what got me through. Yeah. So thank you, Professor Dean.
Yeah, I've never heard so many people have so many nice things to say about a man and how he's helped them. That's like a good teacher, a good motivator, a good mentor who's like really trying to help his students do what they want to do. He's not going to pressure you into doing what he thinks you need to do, which is cool.
And that's like tying into the recurring theme here that we've all said. Teachers are powerful. Your words are powerful, and they can influence someone. They can make or break their career or their track and the path that they're on. So if you go out of your way to tell someone that you think they're great at something, or if you go out of your way to say, I think you can actually do this thing that you don't think you can do, that thing, I mean, your students remember things that you say, and you're never going to know what the thing that they're going to remember. So for me, I always want them to remember something positive, not something I told them where I'm like, why are you doing this? Or why can't you do this? Right.
I keep going back to the power of my privilege, and anyone can use their power. Anyone can use their privilege. Do you use that to guilt people? Do you use it to take advantage, or do you use it to help? And so really, I was nobody. I spotted an opportunity for me to change people's lives, and I took it. I wasn't rich. I wasn't super crazy powerful in all of this. I was just one of 3 band directors, but I had a planning period that I was willing to sacrifice. And so we created the space. And so I've had nothing but positive experiences. The emails I got from parents, I was expecting the typical band, like, hey, that was cool. I was getting paragraph long emails. And the one that stuck out for me, the one that told me that I was onto something special, was when they said, for 20 minutes a week, my son feels like a normal child. And that was me. That's what told me, okay, what we're doing here is right. What I'm choosing to spend my time on is worth it.
That's super awesome. And I think a lot of people forget that anyone, typical or atypical, everyone has feelings. No matter how people look or are perceived to you, everyone everyone has the same crap going through their mind of what they're worried about type of thing, and people forget that often, I feel. So the last thing I want to do to wrap up is maybe spitball a couple concrete ways people can start creating local change. What could that look like? Could it be you give 2 scholarships a year as a private lesson teacher where 2 students get to pay half price all year? Is it starting your own street beat thing on Saturdays for kids to come to, bring a bucket, bring sticks?
Buckets are like $3. And so you create a space like that on a street corner. And I tell my volunteers, if anyone makes eye contact with you, wave them over to you. And so that's how Let Them Drum. That's how we try to create the space for the conversations to happen. So we're talking spend $20 and maybe an hour of your time on a street corner, and that could implement change.
Cool.
Along those lines, I think it's important to tell, or as many people as you feel comfortable, your story, just to get that visual in their heads, because a lot of people don't when I tell people the entirety of my story, they're like, there's no way that's happened. Right. Like, there's no way you practiced 18 hours a day. There's no way you waited for the bus and played in Chicago negative something weather until the bus can't. Like, there's no way. So the more times you can get your story out there, it makes it a little bit more believable that somebody in a similar situation or an even more crazy situation can actually like make that happen in their life.
I'm completely there with Josh. I think the more I talk, the more of my story comes out. And people, the more they know, I think even about the good things as well, but even the struggle, because I think a lot of times we see the end result and you don't know what comes along with that. What did that person do to get there? And some people, because they struggle, they feel like they're not worthy to get to the end because they think, oh, that person didn't struggle. So, not that you have to tell every single thing, because that would take a long time for, I'm sure, all of us. But, just let them know that, we had to work, just like everybody else. I had to juggle practice time, having a job. At one point I was teaching at 4 adjunct colleges, driving 2-3 hours a day, every day. I mean, it doesn't even make sense when I go back. I don't know how I did it. But, just putting that out there, like, whoa. So I identify with your struggle and I'm telling you, I made it, so you can too, so that's part of it. And then, still the same thing, with Ralph was saying, give that time, find someone to mentor. There are people who do have the money and will spend the money, but there are those that don't. Maybe one of those people that can't afford it, you need to mentor them. Give them your time, and because you see the potential in them. I talked about our, college music camp, and I am talking about, in the future doing a drum, music thing like that, where it's free for the community and anybody that wants to come and just wants to drum, and all of our instruments will be available to them. They can come play on them, just experience them to music. But a lot of people don't go to all these camps and things because they just can't afford it. Mm-hmm. So giving opportunities, no matter what your socioeconomic status is, where you are, offering the opportunity, and we want you. That's a great way to just try to get people more involved and make the change in society. Because there are a lot of people who we probably have missed out on just because they were discouraged or they just couldn't afford or didn't think they were valued enough to do it.
Some concrete things. I think first, a very simple thing everyone can do is think intentionally about the language that you use as an educator and remove language that isolates people or alienates people. I fought so hard against y'all because I am from California. I grew up there for 2 decades. And so when I moved to Texas, I was a tour guide, and they forced us to say y'all because it's more friendly. And I'm so glad that I did that now, because not only is it more friendly, it's also inclusive. So I used to say guys a lot. Hey guys. Mm-hmm. And now I do think y'all is just a better a better word for that now. And also I think drumline culture can be pretty hyper masculine. So if you can say like, hey, you gotta man up, or like play like a guy, like play like a man, you know, or like, I think if you can remove phrases like that from your language, it's going to be better for everyone, because it not only makes people feel like they don't belong. What does that even mean? What does it mean to play like a man? I think or like be a man. I think that is confusing for young men as well. Another thing I think people can do, if you're in a position of power in your organization, any kind of influence that you might be able to have, you should encourage people to be hiring different people.
Yeah.
Go out of your way to hire people who are qualified and are fantastic and might not have normally been brought into that kind of organization.
Yeah.
Another thing that people can do concretely, if you are a percussion or band director that is doing instrument assignments, you can try your hardest to remove gender from the instrument, because instruments are not associated with any kind of gender. And we need to stop telling boys that they shouldn't play flute or clarinet, and we need to stop playing girls that they can't play drums. Because I get a lot of questions about how do we get more girls to play percussion? I feel like there are a lot of girls playing percussion actually, and a lot of them want to play percussion, but sometimes they're told no. I'm really happy that Dr. Baxter has had the opposite experience. I think that's amazing. She wanted to play clarinet and then was told to play percussion. So it does take a little bit of extra work on the educator's part, but it makes a huge difference. Make sure everybody is getting an opportunity to try out different kinds of instruments and learn how to play those instruments so that they don't leave as kind of lopsided percussionists.
Yeah, that's perfect. I want to thank all of you so much for being here and giving up your time today. I think that this is going to be helpful for people. I hope everyone watching enjoys it. We're going to be available, and we have been available throughout this chat during this to answer questions or comments or concerns that you might be typing in with. Happy 2020. Enjoy the rest of your PASIC.